Hello, friends and neighbors. Everything's a little wonky today. I'm fighting another sickness. I have made up my mind. I don't care what happens. I am not stopping the videos. I'm going to continue. I'm not going to get behind. I believe that this is the devil. I believe that he knows his time is short. I believe that he will do whatever he has to do to keep us from focusing on the Lord. And that's basically just all I'm doing here, is just focusing on the Lord and the Word of God. And he doesn't like that, regardless of who it comes from. And so I believe that he tries to keep me sick and from doing it. And I'm going to do it if I have to do it from my bed. So we're going to look at chapter 12 today. And I'm just going to start reading like I normally do and then just discuss it a little bit. Now, a great sign was seen in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, under her feet the moon, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and about to give birth, and she screamed in the agony of labor. So first, I do want to say that I believe we are in an interlude, that these couple of chapters here are talking about the story that sets us up for what this entire conflict is about. And so there are a lot of people who put a lot into this. A great sign was seen in heaven. They are actually looking for an arrangement of the stars and the sun and all kinds of things to line up just right to give us a signal that these things are about to happen. I don't think that's what it's saying here. I could be wrong. I believe that this is symbolism. And if we keep reading, we're going to find out who the woman is. There are some people who believe the woman is the church. There are some people who believe the woman is Mary. And then there are people who believe the woman is Israel. So let's keep reading and we'll find out the answer. And we just read one of the clues, the crown of 12 stars. Let's go on to the next passage. Then it says, another sign was seen in heaven. There was a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on its head were 7 royal crowns. Now remember, doesn't this sound like the description of the Antichrist and the beast that we studied in Daniel? And its tail swept a third of the stars out of heaven and threw them down to earth. It stood in front of the woman about to give birth so that it might devour the child the moment it was born. So a lot of scholars say that its tail swept a third of the stars out of heaven and threw them down to earth. They think that this is talking about when Satan was thrown out of heaven and he took a third of the angels with him. I don't believe that's what it means, because it's not talking about that far back. It's talking about beginning with the birth of a child. And I think we'll find a little more definition about that, excuse me, as we read on. She gave birth to a son, a male child. And now here's our clue that gives us some idea of who this is. The one who will rule all the nations with a staff of iron. But her child was snatched up to God and his throne, and she fled into the desert, where she has a place prepared by God so that she can be taken care of for 1,260 days. That sounds familiar. So I think in these 2 verses, it's covering a large period of time. She gave birth to a son, so it's talking about when Jesus was born. But he was snatched up to God and his throne. That is when he was crucified, resurrected, and taken into heaven. And then she fled into the desert for 1,260 days. That's talking about the end. So it's talking about when Jesus was born, when he went to heaven, and when Israel flees to the desert for safety in the last 3.5 years. So now we know that the woman is Israel. It runs to the desert for safety. And we see that also in Zechariah, where it says that that is what will happen. So the woman is not the church. Once again, we're looking at anti-Semitism, where for centuries and centuries and centuries, people have tried to say that the church has replaced Israel. That is not true. God is not done with Israel. He has not replaced her with anybody. Next, there was a battle in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon and his angels fought back. But it was not strong enough to win, so that there was no longer any place for them in heaven. The great dragon was thrown out, that ancient serpent, also known as the devil and Satan, the adversary, the deceiver of the whole world. He was hurled down to the earth, and his angels were hurled down with him. So I believe that if what we know is, my nose is itching. We know by reading Job that Satan comes before God in heaven. He still has access to heaven, and he accuses the saints. And so I believe that at this point, he is thrown out and never allowed to step foot back in heaven. He's never allowed to come and accuse the saints anymore before God. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now have come God's victory, power, and kingship, and the authority of his Messiah, because the accuser of our brothers, who accuses them day and night before God, has been thrown out. They defeated him because of the Lamb's blood, and because of the message of their witness. Even when facing death, they did not cling to life." So we know that this all had to happen after Jesus was crucified, resurrected, and taken up to heaven, because it's saying that they defeated him because of what Jesus did. "Therefore rejoice, heaven, and you who live there, but woe to you, land and sea, for the adversary has come down to you, and he is very angry, because he knows that his time is short." So the devil knows the Bible. He knows prophecy. He knows that when God removes Israel and moves her to the desert for safety for 1,260 days, that he is almost out of time. When the dragon saw that he had been hurled down to earth, and once again, we're talking about an event that happens during the tribulation. This is not talking, it's not going all the way back to Genesis and all the way back there when the devil was thrown out. It's talking about when he is told he will not come before God anymore, accusing the brethren. "And when he saw that he had been hurled down to the earth, he went in pursuit of the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle," which is kind of like a Hebrew idiom that means deliverance by God, "so that she could fly to her place in the desert, where she is taken care of for a season and 2 seasons and half a season." There we are back at our 3.5 years, or as it says in verse 6, 1,260 days. away from the serpent's presence. Excuse me. So it's saying they are safe away from the serpent's presence. The serpent spewed water like a river out of its mouth after the woman in order to sweep her away in the flood, but the land came to her rescue. It opened its mouth and swallowed up the river which the dragon had spewed out of its mouth. Now, this could be a literal flood, but it also could just mean that that Satan has sent an army after them. Somehow he is trying to attack them, and he's not successful. The dragon was infuriated over the woman and went off to fight the rest of her children, those who obey God's commands and bear witness to Yeshua. So, evidently, not everyone is kept safe in the desert. So, a lot of people are not sure what this means, went off to fight the rest of her children. We do know that it's not unbelieving Jews, because it says that they obey God's commands and bear witness to Yeshua, so they believe that Jesus is the Messiah. So there's only one hint, and it still doesn't exactly tell us, but in Zechariah 14, it does tell us that not everyone will flee to safety. In Zechariah 14:2, it says, "For I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses plundered, and the women raped. Half of the city shall go out into exile, but the rest of the people shall not be cut off from the city. Then the Lord will go out and fight against those nations as when he fights on a day of battle." And then it talks about his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, and the mountain will be split in half. Then the Lord will come and all the holy ones with him. So not all of Israel will be in exile. Zechariah says it will be half. So, I don't know what will determine what half goes off into the desert for safety. But I do know that Satan will then go after those who have not been placed in safety. And these will be people who believe in Jesus as the Messiah. So, pretty interesting. So, if you have any comments, let me know. If you have any ideas on what some of the answers could be on the things that I just talked about, that where I said, we're not sure. If you know of any scriptures that shed a little more light on it, just let me know, and I will see you in the next video talking about chapter 13. Thank you. I love you, friends.